Guys, Robert, and here with Liana returning as we go over, well, going back to our very first time we worked together was He-Man, uh, Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, part two. Now, few things. One, sorry I'm late. Computer issues, like I said in the chat. And two, there's going to be a shorter one, unfortunately. No 3 hour talks or whatnot. But, yeah, so let's just start off with part two. What did you think?
I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably enjoyed it more because I had been so aware of what
Mm-hmm.
was being said about it going forward. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I enjoyed it overall. I mean, it was pretty much in line with our expectations going in.
Oh, I
Uh,
definitely would agree.
should we spoiler this?
Spoiler
Spoiler
alert.
alert! Yeah, there's gonna be spoilers in this, guys. Like a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, the pretty much the only thing we got wrong was Duncan survived the whole time.
Yeah, that was pretty much the
And
only thing we got wrong.
yeah,
Everything else?
everything else. Orco came back. Tila became the new sorceress. Prince Adam
Yep.
is still He-Man, and it's all about why
Mm,
he's worthy of being He-Man. Skeletor won. I mean, the Evelyn stuff was interesting. They certainly hinted that it was going to come to a head
mm-hmm.
with that stuff. But yeah, pretty much everything we said happened. I mean, we were
Yep.
right about the sorceress not making it out, like
Oh, yeah.
Tila not making it out. So,
Yep.
I mean, in terms of in terms of what our expectations were, with what the people that were making us miserables expectations were,
Yeah.
it sounds like we were sort of more aware of
Yep.
they leaned heavily into the 2002
Yeah.
continuity, and that I was never the biggest fan of the 2002 continuity the same way I was as the original, and so that was
Mm-hmm.
probably my one um issue with it. I don't like dark He-Man. Now, I mean, I
Right.
did think it was cool that they used Skeletor's big apotheosis to put him in the battle armor.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was super clever. One of my favorite things about the whole series is how they reimagined playsets and certain characters that were cool toys, but really had no place in the whole thing, like Scareglow.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Big, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So
And yeah, I had no
I,
idea. I had no idea about that. There was some stuff I saw coming my way, but that's because Rob David's involved. And if you read the DC comics, you
mhm.
see what you knew where he was going to go for the most part. But it's like if he could have, he would have just adapted what he did at DC, but he couldn't. So
Well,
yeah.
to me, and this is when I start taking off my fan hat and putting on my business hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I'm going to be cynical for a minute, this was Mattel driving a lot of the decisions
Right.
on, because let's face it, this is the line that they want Netflix to put out so that
Mm-hmm.
people who watch a show in 2008, in 2002, and the 80s go out and buy a fresh wave of toys,
Exactly.
right? That and it is so with the what I call the Hulk Man.
Mm-hmm.
That was
A
such a
savage,
Hulk story.
savage
He was
He-Man,
savage.
savage. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was the Hulk. I'm like,
Yep.
he went fast. Yeah, yeah. Like
But that was
that was
fresh. That was fresh. We've never seen Adam transform without the sword.
that was an interesting lore point. But let's face it, it was an excuse for another He-Man variant,
Yeah.
right? Same thing
One
with the
even more bulked
Skeletor.
out than King Grayskull.
Right, right. I mean that was Four Horsemen, make another toy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing with Skeletor with the green, and Panther suddenly having the skull armor on his head. Poor
Yep.
Panther.
Oh
But
boy, yeah, he didn't come back.
and Orko the White, man.
Or go
Orko
the
the
what?
White.
Okay, I didn't expect him to go all the way with that. I knew he'd come back. I didn't expect him to go as Orko the White.
That was pretty funny. He's Orko the White. But it's all, I mean, Evelyn's sorceress look,
Mm-hmm.
Tila's sorceress look with the hair that comes back. We even said
Yep.
the hair was gonna
Oh yeah,
come
the
back.
hair came
Yeah,
back.
the hair
The
came
hair
back.
came back, and no one said anything about that. It's like, oh, they want to complain about her butch hair.
Yeah, hey Bianca.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the hair came back. It was all variant figures, and I thought the
Mm-hmm.
way they told a story to explain all the variant figures
Yeah.
was pretty good, right? But the more I looked at it, the more I thought this is Mattel driving it, which is why the whole thing about getting rid of He-Man was
Mm-hmm.
an utterly ridiculous theory because,
Uh,
Kevin Smith himself said they were never going to let anybody kill He-Man.
not
It's
for
too
reals,
much of
no.
a cash cow, right? Now, you were saying that people are still clinging to they were right, it's still woke.
Well, yeah, there are people still saying, "Oh, Skeletor got cucked. Skeletor got it was an incel. Evil. Oh, my favorite is that. Oh, they still got it right though. Someone did get the power. He-Man got roided out. They just picked the wrong woman. You were still wrong, people. You kept saying either Andra or Teela were going to become the new He-Man. They were going to be the new champion.
Yeah.
Evil Lynn's not even the champion.
I called Andra new Man at Arms.
Oh
Called
yeah.
that. Duncan survived, but I was 3 for 3 on who was who with that. And the funny thing is they were telegraphing that.
Oh yeah,
and
they're still clinging on to Teela being mean when she figured things out. I mean, that moment, that nice moment between them in was it 3, I think, where they're talking to each other, and it's just like, they flat out say like, I get it. It was still nasty. I still have issues. Anyone would be hurt, but I understand now.
Sure, and the thing I find funniest, I mean, is this the first time in an animation that Skeletor and Evelyn are confirmed to have a relationship?
I think so. I think the 2002 hinted.
Yeah, it hinted, but it didn't.
Oh, well, for animation, live action, I think there was something between them in that movie. That little bit of him caressing her face and all that.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I love Skeletor. I mean, if you look at my toy, you can't see Skeletor up top.
Yep.
Battle Armor Skeletor. Like, I love Skeletor as a villain. And I think Mark Hamill did an excellent job with him as a villain. But these guys who are identifying with Skeletor and doing he's a cuck, he's this, that's got me kind of disturbed because what I thought they did so well with Evelyn is she was such a badass.
Yeah.
She lost, right? Total badass, but ultimately she lost.
She lost, and she was broken. It's a case of she was already broken. Man at Arms and the others were trying to. That's what I like about Man at Arms. The others were trying to get her to do the right thing.
Right.
What they never expected was for Skeletor to break her further by showing her basically what the universe is. And as far as he thinks, look at this, isn't this wonderful? And she's like, I see a lot of nothing.
What an interesting final on-screen use of why it's called Masters of the Universe, too.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
that was the other thing I love. That how many abilities did He-Man always have that we never knew that Skeletor and Evelyn revealed? The ability to rip souls out and then decide where they go to. It's
that was an interesting interpretation of original canon in that the whole idea is that nobody controlled all the power. That's why you have to have Sorceress and He-Man.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting because we see what happened if it's unfiltered, or we see with He-Man, or we see what happens if the Sorceress
Praetornia's gone.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, Evelyn roided out. It's just too much power for a single person. I can imagine the haters had an issue with that line at the end when He-Man.
This was never about us.
Yeah,
which is true. That's what it's always. That's how it is. Now, I mean, okay. In the end, there's one line I would always prefer. In every incarnation, Skeletor is destined to lose. Skeletor, that is something that was a key part of Masters of the Multiverse.
Yes.
Skeletor, does not matter. He's always destined to lose, no matter what. That is consistency. Having it be, it's always about the two of them. No.
And that's something I think that's changed in audience expectations since the 80s, maybe even since 2002. Though the 2002 cartoon, I think, made Skeletor too awesome and made He-Man kind of boring, and maybe that's why there's so many Team Skeletor people. But between the 80s and now, the assumption when you watched anything in the 80s, even if it got really dark and a good guy turned evil, or it seemed the bad guy won for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew that that was just, the midpoint,
Yeah.
and that eventually the good guys would win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it doesn't seem that modern audiences have that expectation. Something has happened, and now either there's an expectation that the bad guys will win, there won't be a happy ending, or somehow it's like the Empire Strikes Back phenomenon. People say
Yep.
Empire is the best movie, so I
Uh,
admit I don't get it. Why
I
people are
don't
so
either.
invested in villains? It's not just Skeletor.
Oh, it's like yeah, like well, it depends because some of them made them. I wouldn't say they made them humanize. Well, they did kind of humanize them, but not to the point of maybe they were the good person all along, but more like oh yeah, I kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, it's you know
Right,
what I mean right there. It's the
right.
whole
There's a big difference.
well intentioned extremist, but
Yeah,
still an extremist.
there's a difference between I see where they're coming from and I want them to be redeemed, or I think they're a good person.
Sinestro, for example,
Right,
he's
right,
pretty much space Hitler, but you
right,
understand why he's done what he's done.
right.
It doesn't justify because he's
That's
still
right.
an evil son of a bitch.
Or someone like Magneto. You
Oh,
really
exactly.
feel for Magneto, but Magneto still supports genocide.
Yep, or Skeletor in the DC comic. In that
Right.
case, where he went through a lot of shit. The fact that he was the eldest, he should have, and he was worthy to be king, but because he was both a bastard and his mother was a Gar, which
Right.
was the ones that were responsible for killing King Grayskull, it was never going to happen. Even
Right.
though Randor himself admitted, you
Right.
should be king.
Right. Hominus in chat said the thing about Man-at-Arms. Andra has one battle and becomes Man-at-Arms. I thought they pivoted the Man-at-Arms role a little bit for this series so that he was more like
There was a title.
the person who supplies the technology,
Yeah.
not the general. That's Tila.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's somebody else now, but Man-at-Arms. Well, I guess Tila was Man-at-Arms, but it was more the armor.
She was supposed to be the man at arms, but then
Yeah.
she obviously like, I'm out, peace.
Yeah, but Man-at-Arms in this series struck me as more of an armorer and less of a tactician.
Yeah, I would
So,
agree with
yeah,
that.
that sort of shifted that.
I'll be
bit.
honest. When we had Skeletor teaming up with Adam, you know what line immediately came to my head was, He-Man, I'm speaking to you as a friend. I'm just like, why didn't they have Mark say that?
I thought that was that was probably the best Skeletor dialogue section.
Oh yeah, that whole bit.
Yeah.
Like, are we really gonna go up to her and ask her to please not destroy the universe? We're really gonna do it, aren't we?
Well, and it gave him a lot of you nincompoops and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
you
It gave him
nincompoop.
opportunity for that. Speaking of which, they really went fan canon with Beastman, didn't they?
Oh yeah, and I felt bad for him.
Well, you're supposed to, but that thing with Beastman and Evelyn is so fan canon. I forgot it wasn't canon.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things where you keep on thinking, "Oh, it's always been there," and then you find out, you realize, no, it hasn't.
No, it's been so established as fan canon, and they made it make sense, right?
Yeah.
They sort of showed that Beastman and Evelyn do have
Hey,
stuff in
Triss.
common. Tristan. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting. It was an interesting blending of a bunch of different sources, going like deep dive into the show Bible for some point.
Hey, Raymond says, "What about the tragedy of Beastman?"
Yeah, well, I mean, Beastman was always there. Pardon my language. Beastman's primary role is to be Skeletor's bitch.
Exactly. Oh, yep. Especially that. I mean, come on. Even look back at Secret of Swords when She-Ra. What does She-Ra do? She just locks him in there, like, "Hey, you can't do this to me." Funny. I thought I just did. Bye now.
Yeah, and I mean, I've always had a soft spot for Beastman because he's not.
He was such a lovable. He was never. You think he would be vicious? He was never vicious. He was more like a. Yeah.
Yeah, he's more of an attack dog than a bad guy. If he had a better master.
Tavia, we'll get to the motherboard. We'll get there.
Yeah, well, let's go there now because that.
Okay, that twist. Okay, I thought Evelyn was going to be the guy, and the sorceress for Horcrux. No, it was the motherboard.
Yeah, that
I
was.
did not see that coming.
It's almost like when they set off to do this, they were like, okay, we're gonna do one and see how it goes, and we're gonna make two endings.
Hmm.
Okay, in fairness, they did foreshadow the motherboard with that episode that we thought was a throwaway with
Yeah.
Triceratops and Trapjaw having the cult and it being hilarious, right?
Yeah, but
So
we
they're
didn't get.
sort
But
of
we had no idea. We could. Who would ever predict it would connect back to the Horde?
yeah, but he did set it up like right in front of us. But I
Yeah.
do think there was probably two endings done, and
Yep.
after the first six became
Hmm.
such
Well,
a
and I think they were able to negotiate a bit with DreamWorks. I think.
yeah, I wonder if they've got Kevin Smith contracted for a second season because it's not going to have the same
Yeah.
flavor without him. But after this,
Yeah. After this, I mean,
would I do it again if I were him? Probably not. I mean, guys, it
no.
was fun.
So long I think that the other writers are involved, I think you can have someone else besides Kevin involved, or Kevin could be in as the executive producer, but not as hands-on.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. So much of that, especially the back half, felt like him.
It did. Oh, especially Fisto.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The
Like
fact,
you knew that he had to put in a Fisto joke,
yeah.
and oh yeah,
And Ram Man and
yep,
Fisto and Ram Man made it
yep.
back.
Oh, Tristan made a good point earlier. Hold on. Evelyn's amazing
Yeah.
battered woman story. She is.
That is again one of those things. I don't know if that because they started hinting more of that in the 2002 series, but that was another big part of fan canon.
Yep,
I
but again, also the live action movie. Again, it was
yeah.
both. Like the two were going on between him, but he was basically like the whole that you should go out there. I did not suggest I go. Then you should not have spoken.
Yeah, I mean that again, there was a lot of fan canon that Evelyn and Skeletor had a thing and he sort of saved her from a bad thing and he was abusive and she I mean
Again, Rob David plays up on that in the DC comics even.
and casting Lena Headey in that voice, you sort of see Cersei Lannister a lot,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
it definitely was reflective of Robert Baratheon and Cersei, right?
Yeah. But what I like though is that this is not a Joker Harley thing. This is not. This is a case where Skeletor
No,
does not realize what he's doing. It's one of those cases where he cannot accept responsibility, so he lashes out.
yeah, I didn't get the sense that he was just like blase smacking her around the way
Yeah,
that
it was more like a case where
right?
he's just like his anger boils over. He's just like, "Urgh." And let's be honest, when He-Man becomes Savage He-Man, and then and all that stuff, what's the only conclusion he could jump to? He doesn't know what's going on, so he's gonna think, "Did you give him the power?"
I think it was also an interesting cycle of abusers abuse,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there was sort of an ongoing theme with that in the whole thing that Tila was lied to, so she does things that we don't like. And it was like, oh my God, what's wrong with you, Tila? But then, you know,
Which she needed it. Knowing now where it ended, she needed this.
it,
She needed to,
it, it was an ongoing theme of, oh, Bianca's leaving. Oh, bye, Bianca.
See ya.
But it was an ongoing theme of you know what you put sounds kind of cheesy with Masters in it, but what you put out
Mm-hmm.
into the universe comes back to you, right?
Yeah,
And Adam is a good person.
he is.
Tila is a good person who needed a minute. You jump over to Skeletor. Skeletor is not a good person, and he can
No.
be. And I think a lot of people feel very sorry for Skeletor, but that's the whole point.
Yep.
We
Now
people,
it's
people,
different from the Keldor Skeletor. It's very different from the Keldor Skeletor, where he
yeah,
is very. You feel bad for him. This one, you still don't know that much about him, so you can only what you
yeah,
get. What you have is what you get.
yeah. I admit I haven't figured out how the Keldor Skeletor squares with.
It doesn't.
It
That's why
doesn't.
the comic,
Yeah,
the comic made it clear he's from another race of other skeletal-like beings,
right.
or at
So I
least
mean,
skeletal face beings. The rest of it, people gotta remember that. That's not a suit. That's still skin. So yeah, he
yeah.
still has the plumbing, the bang,
But
evil in, and all that.
that was a really funny thing. I really needed a grown up during that scene.
Yeah, just
Because
because you told me this beforehand off channel
yeah,
about how you and some of your friends used to do
I
role plays.
yeah, I was in a Play by Email like He-Man Masters of the Universe role-playing game back in the day, and I was Skeletor because I had a ton of Dungeons and Dragons experience. So we
Hmm.
basically ran it like a dungeon master. Skeletor would set up the plot for them to all stop, and every time there's an evil in, she's always macking on Skeletor. There's always something. And I finally said to one player, "How would that work? Does she lick his teeth or something?" And she licked his teeth, and I'm sitting here going, ah! But that whole scene, I think, was deliberately creepy, and it was an
I
interesting
they're playing
kind
up
of
to the fandom, and I will say this: when it comes, that whole moment, it made so much sense. How else was she going to do it? And the way one of my lines I did like was earlier when she says, "I'm sorry, I'm not He-Man. Maybe you would give me more attention or focus or whatever." And it's just like,
I thought it because Kevin Smith is a big nerd, right? He's a big
mm-hmm,
fan, and that was one of those Kevin Smith touches where it's like, hey, all you slash fiction writers, when it's canon, it's creepy.
mm-hmm,
I thought that was sort of an interesting statement of when it's right on your screen, you're like, what's
yep,
going on? And I actually admit I thought of a friend of mine who's been watching it with his son,
mm-hmm,
and his son's young, and he's had issues with stop killing my toys, stop killing these characters, and I'm like,
right,
I may have to warn him about this back half because it's not. His son is 13 now.
mm-hmm,
He may be able to handle. He's sort of a young 13 instead of boy girl stuff, but
mm-hmm.
it's not a show for kids.
No,
And I think we were talking about this off air that we sort of agree that that's one thing we personally didn't like about it. But
mm-hmm,
at the
true,
same time, that is exactly what they declared the purpose of this show was. So
mm-hmm,
I'm not going to claim it's a mistake, right?
no,
And this is where we get into the you can't please all fandoms. Somebody like me
yeah,
who wants
yeah,
an adult He-Man, I want more complicated moral themes,
yeah.
but
And-
brutal violence and sexy time. I
Yep.
was not prepared. I was not prepared for
Basically,
blood.
it's and the phrase is they were saying this from the beginning. This is He-Man unfiltered.
Yeah.
No censors, no filmation standards, none of that stuff. They made that clear, and I
Yeah.
think so many people did not understand that. I
I,
think some of the people who complained about did not realize that this was going to be beyond. Because let's be honest, the reason why we kept getting so many wash, rinse, repeat stuff in the old days was because what, you had writers who didn't believe in the material. I mean, come on, you have JMS. People applaud He-Man at a convention, he's like, don't applaud He-Man because he doesn't want to think back to. He doesn't want to think anything good about it. But
well,
but you have the standards and
also
practices and censors and all that.
I also don't think people realize how little money Filmation had when they made that original series.
That
Like
too, yeah.
they had no money, and the only way you stretch a budget is make it fast. The
Yep.
longer your development time goes on, the more expensive it is
Hey,
to
look at
make.
what happens Teen Times Go, right? Look at that.
Yeah.
That became such a chugga, and how much did the writing quality suffer?
Yeah. Now, this is an interesting comment in chat. Let's be real; it's real difficult for man to reject sex from a beautiful woman if he's not with someone. Not impossible, but difficult. Skeletor included. Okay,
That's
I'm not a man.
mm-hmm.
I can't really, but I mean, to me, Skeletor has always been kind of deluded in that I think he actually, and they played into this in the He-Man show. I think he thought everybody followed him willingly,
Yeah. He
right?
didn't realize it was fear.
Yeah, and I think that he actually thought
Or is that, yeah,
him and
same with
Evelyn
Evil
had
Lynn.
a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, like she owed him. She should be grateful. Therefore, this is not strange. It was a bit of
Exactly.
a self-delusion thing. I don't think it was necessarily any woman. I do get a sense that Evelyn was kind of a blind spot
Yeah.
for him, and he cares about her in his
Mm-hmm.
own way. I mean, okay, an overarching theme of that show, for better or worse, is, and this is very Kevin Smith as well, men are really fucking stupid. That's an ongoing Kevin Smith thing. I mean,
Well, yeah, when you
Randall.
look back at stuff, but not in that woke way, but more in
No,
that that's just how he writes them. When you really look at it, with some exceptions, they're either yeah. Look back at Clerks. It
yeah,
was either they
yeah,
are
yeah.
stupid or assholes or can't catch a break.
Or underdeveloped it in some sort of state of arrested development, right? That is a Kevin Smith
Randall,
thing.
Randall's all of them rolled
Right.
into one.
Exactly, exactly. And so, I mean, Randor's dumb, dumb to the point that he almost ruined his marriage, which I
Mm-hmm.
think was a bit of Kevin Smith working at his own stuff there.
Right.
Adam wasn't the smartest
He
in
wasn't
a lot
smart,
of
but he
ways.
wasn't brain dead like some
No,
people are accusing him of being.
no, he
Oh, and
wasn't brain dead.
Tavia, just remember, yes, Skeletor can have sex. That's not, except for his skull face, the rest of him is a body.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
does have the plumbing and everything. We talked about that on our stream a few days ago.
Yeah, that's it, hominous. It's like stoner dumb,
Yeah.
right? It's the Kevin Smith kind of dumb. Randor was so stoner dumb, but I mean, Man at Arms was kind of not the brightest bulb in the sign off the top. Skeletor was a doofus. I mean, that's a very, very
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Smith thing. Men are dumb and women tolerate us anyway. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that's right. I'm just
Right.
saying every movie except for maybe Dogma, which is sort of a an
Oh, I love
anomaly.
Dogma. I love Dogma. It's one of those
Yeah.
movies that actually make you think about some of the things that it's poking fun at.
Yeah, but it was sort of an anomaly in terms
Mm-hmm.
of Kevin Smith's body of work. All the clerk stuff, all the Jersey stuff. It's usually men are butt heads. Butt heads is
Yep.
a better word than stupid.
Yeah.
And women tend to be the betters of the men in Kevin Smith movies. And
Yep.
again, rightly or wrongly, this is a thing he does.
Yep.
So that's why I'm saying there's little fingerprints of Kevin Smith all through this, and I'm not sure unless they just go full on pivot, bring in She-Ra, give it a whole different tone because it's a new showrunner.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how they're gonna get
Maybe.
around it. I'm not convinced they're gonna bring in She-Ra just because they brought in the Horde. There's no
Well, the two
guarantee.
are connected, though. I think that there's not you can't have one without the other. I'm pretty sure. I think DreamWorks would have had to have given up both to do it because Hordak would fall under their wheelhouse.
Keep in mind though, Hordak was originally a Masters of the Universe toy.
So, yep, that is very well. So was She-Ra technically.
Well, no, She-Ra had her own series that
Right,
Hordak
right.
was the villain for, but Hordak was originally issued with Leech and Grizzlor. Oh my
True.
God, Grizzlor must be
Grizzlor.
in season 2. We need Grizzlor.
I want Grizzlor and Beastman
Yeah,
too.
I need Grizzlor. I love Grizzlor.
Now,
Oh my God.
how would you want them to do Ketra?
See, you gotta go totally different with Catra. They have to do such a complete pivot from what's her name, Noelle Stevenson,
Yeah,
the
from
original
the
Netflix
Netflix,
show.
from DreamWorks She-Ra.
Yeah, it will be if you just bring in She-Ra.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. If you bring
Oh, I want
in,
Shadow Weaver too because
yeah,
did you know that in the DC comic they actually had it revealed that in that version, Skeletor and Shadow Weaver had a thing.
yeah. If you bring in, you're going to bring in some She-Ra characters. You're going to bring in all of Etheria. Um, they're going to have to make some tough decisions there
Yeah,
because it will have to be completely its own thing
yeah.
from that very Cal Arts She-Ra show, right?
Which, by the way, have you seen the documentation they had about like the pitch and everything, showing that there was a lot of major changes done between pitch to here, especially originally Catra and Adora were supposed to be like sisters, no relationship, which I think that makes it more clear when you look at you're like, yeah, they swerved.
Oh, they were swerving all over the place with that show. I think just because they didn't expect it to go as long as they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'd have to start from scratch, and because it's the She-Ra show is very kid to teen, like it's very tween.
But they also don't want to piss them off either.
Well, and do you really need Bo? You know, do you really
No, you
need
don't need Bo. You
Seahawk?
don't need Glimmer. You don't need because they weren't even in the DC Comics version. The
Right,
only ones that was there that were main characters were Shadow Weaver,
right,
Adora,
right,
Hordak,
right.
and that was pretty much it. Everyone else was a bit part, like Imp and all that. They were bit parts.
Yeah, and the focus has got to be on the Horde, not
Yeah,
on the whole She-Ra thing. If they want to spin it off to a She-Ra thing, I could
yeah,
imagine that going um 16 ways of bad, but
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because that She-Ra cartoon was a third rail in its own way,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of messaging in it that I read it. Went, if I'm gonna think too hard about this, there's a lot about this show that kind of disturbs me with She-Ra, whereas He-Man managed to avoid that because it
Yeah,
was just so let's find excuses for them to fight. You
exactly.
know, that when they pivot to She-Ra and the Horde, it should be, you know, Skeletor's forces and the Horde's forces and like the Masters Universe, like
Well,
three-way fighting.
I say this: if Shira, I just have it be that Shira lost. Have it be that the resistance has been like she tried her hardest, but things just did not go her way. Because how else,
Oh,
and basically she comes back. It's just her, and then and Swift win, baby. All the
you know what I'd do? I'd have
what?
it be that because Hordak kidnapped She-Ra, right? She's raised by
Yep,
Hordak and Shadow
she's the
Weaver.
Sparrow in the comics. Yeah.
Have her start there. She hasn't become a good guy yet.
Well, that would be going by the. Well, yeah, you're right. Especially since people said, "Well, this isn't a direct; this is a spiritual continuation." Yeah, just ignore
Yeah.
that and go forward with that. Or what if she was cyber eyes, whatever, like Skeletor was at the end?
See, I'd go more with sort of a magic element. So she's got like Weaver stuff, and Adam's about power. She-Ra's about honor. So
Yep.
the She-Ra arc would have to be somehow reclaiming her honor, which
Oh
could go
yeah.
in some interesting places, right? Because it's all
Yep.
about
Or how
Adam
many said
being
best? At least Master Universe wasn't New Adventures. Good God,
yeah,
yes.
because I mean, like Adam, it was all the story about why Adam's worthy of the power of Grayskull. So bringing in She-Ra would have to be why She-Ra's worthy of the honor
Tavia,
of
it's not so
Grayskull.
much we want her to be a villain the whole time, but like for the first part, maybe. Like
But
maybe
that's
have it
so
be.
80s. That's so
Yeah,
80s.
maybe have it be for part one of season two. To have it be she's Despera. Bring in the Despera
Yeah.
persona.
But
She's wearing this horde mask, so you don't know it's her. And at the very end, then it gets knocked off, and
and
she's yeah.
evil twins were so 80s that it would make sense. But yeah, it's the honor of
Well,
Grayskull. It's not the power of Grayskull.
well, yeah. Well, to be fair, technically, it was still always the power at the same time, just different.
Let's face it, it wasn't the power of Grayskull because it was the 80s and girls still had to be dainty. But that could be very interesting because it could introduce a whole other female body type
Mm-hmm.
into that animation so all of them don't look like you're,
Boy, I gotta say that animation
girls.
company has come a long way from doing the Clerks extra, the lost scene.
Did you notice how the animation standardized more and more as it went along?
Oh yeah,
It cleaned up in the back half a lot.
yep. But
Uh,
so obviously one thing people want us to talk about is what do we think the other side wanted?
yeah, I we talked about this a bit, and I said they wanted a straight up Skeletor versus He-Man fight where everybody else was just sort of on the sidelines,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Skeletor winning all the things until the end where He-Man beat Skeletor.
And then Tila being the sources with a footnote, like, oh yep, there's that. Bye bye.
Well, I think it really seems like they really misunderstood what the purpose of the sorceress was. They
Oh
thought the
yeah,
sorceress was a lot more passive and
hierarchy. The
intelligent.
hierarchy is sorceress. No, the goddesses, then the
Yeah,
sorceress, then the champion.
yeah.
And if
And,
Tila was to embrace it, she needed to. And I think again the whole point. I don't think if what happened if the sorceress died first at the beginning and Tila did not go through everything she went through, I don't think she would have come out the other end. I think she would have stayed at done the whole very well, stay at the castle, the castle and everything. I don't think she would have had the will to say like, no, I'm changing the rules.
Well, I also think that too. I also think that Evelyn was sort of a cautionary tale of what would have happened to Tila had she not worked through her anger.
Oh, that too, yeah. So
Yeah,
both steps of it.
yeah.
And
Like
I gotta say, I love that whole. I could beat you, and this will be the easiest fight because I just have to leave. Sorry, the castle's under new management.
yeah, that
Even
that
though
was
I did not care for that fight, I prefer the He-Man versus Skeletor fight. The Tina versus Evil M fight felt a little too anime generic.
yeah, it felt like they had half a fight and then they needed to stretch and it
Hmm.
started to feel like they were
Especially the
copying.
chains. Once you bring the chains into it, you're like, really?
Yeah, there was too much people getting knocked over in a particular sideways pose. I agree. That wasn't my it was like they had to stretch it for time and they didn't have enough stuff to fill it with.
Oh, yeah, Tavia put it best. He's not just He-Man 24/7. I think that's the thing. These people, when they see it, they are thinking that, oh, it should be He-Man all the time. It should be like the Master of the Universe movie where he was never Adam. We should never have Adam. It's like, because Adam represents weakness. No, Adam represents the heart.
Yeah, but it was also in the original cartoons, they couldn't have He-Man use the sword against anyone because it was too violent. They wouldn't let it
Yep.
on TV. So you
But they couldn't even have
basically
Adam look different. You could not even have Adam look different because of their cheapness.
yeah, but also just they wouldn't let that on a kids show after
Hmm.
school back in the 80s. And so
Yeah.
they couldn't have much He-Man because all He-Man could do is like use the sword to hold up walls or like reflect beams or yeah, punch maybe, but they couldn't use the
I
sword.
always loved him just punching the screen like that.
Yeah. He has a sword and he punches, but He-Man would get really boring really fast. He-Man was always the last. This is a job for Superman, right?
Exactly. I mean, and look at the stuff he would do, like somehow magic two chains together, or grab a
Yeah.
stalactite and just spin his way through the earth, or push the moon back in place. It's like,
Well, it was also that anime influence where you needed the transformation sequence, and if you
yep.
have your transformation sequence too early in the show, there's nowhere to go.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have to have the transformation sequence in the back half to last third of your show for it to be exciting. Everything else is
Hmm.
just build up. Why do we need He-Man? Because something terrible has happened, right?
Exactly.
It is has
I
been a
mean, at
really
least with She-Ra, they were able to do it because of how her power set works. You could have her at any point in there and stay She-Ra the rest of the show.
well, and let's face it, in She-Ra they didn't fucking do anything.
Really, yeah.
I have a horrible bias against She-Ra.
The only time I ever felt she did much was in The Secret of the Sword.
Yeah, I despised She-Ra as a kid. First of all, I thought the toys were cheap and shitty. I
I
mean,
had, I
He-Man toys were cheap and shitty. Don't get me wrong, but She-Ra, like,
Oh yeah, well even Hordak's toy was the little fire thing he shoots out of his chest broke
yeah.
too easily.
But also, I mean, at least the He-Man toys kind of look like He-Man in the show.
Oh yeah, She-Ra, what was it? This as Clownfish like to point, brushable hair.
Yeah, but they didn't look anything like they did in the
Oh
show.
Grizzlor! Good God, it was just a puffball. Do you remember that? How
I
he just
love,
needed a little puffball
I
on
love
legs.
Grizzlor. Grizzlor is one of my favorite He-Man
Yeah,
action figures.
yeah, but,
Absolutely.
but you get what I mean? It's just like, what, do they want him to have brushable hair?
I brush Grizzlor's hair. He has to be shiny. But yeah, the She-Ra toys just
Except for
everything.
Hordak's Horde. Except for the Hordak and the Horde Trooper.
Yeah, but again, those were series 3, I believe, Masters of the Universe toys. The She-Ra line came slightly after that.
True, you're right.
And those little girly toys with the stupid
Yeah.
clip-on thing and the stupid
I only
shirt.
had the She-Ra and Glittersaw toy. I never had anything else of those. But yeah, though, I mean, the only thing I ever watched of She-Ra was Secret of the Sword that I watched regularly because I had it recorded, so I would
Also,
watch it.
you didn't see the original She-Ra cartoons.
No,
Oh, they were so boring.
but I think that's why my standard's been so high, though, because I watched what was pretty much the best of it, and because of and it was so well written. Secret of the Sword is still, I think, the best writing of both shows. And now for He-Man, it ended off on that. For She-Ra, unfortunately, it set the bar too high on the beginning.
Yeah, Yeah, She-Ra was just, and I know there are people that love She-Ra, but my, late childhood was, oh, you must like She-Ra. No, I don't like She-Ra. I like
You
He-Man. And then everybody looked at me like I was
grew a
strange.
third head, like you grew a third head.
Well, it was just that's not what a girl should like. It's like there are girls in He-Man. Why can't I like He-Man just because I'm a girl? Why am I stuck on this shitty She-Ra horse shit? Like even when I was 10, I knew Bo was probably gay.
Ha!
I just like that. The guy's wearing
Or
a
the
heart
fact, the
on his
fact that
chest.
before they brought in the Horde, originally the main bulk of it was supposed to be Shira and Catra fighting over Bo.
Yeah, Bo wasn't interested in either of them.
But
That
and but then, and in fact, you can still find it. You find there's like this old. I always remember this old children's books series. There was like three of them.
yeah,
Very different art style, but it very much focused on Adora and Catra.
yeah.
No one else.
Yeah. I just did not feel the whole She-Ra thing at all. I've always been way more invested in He-Man, in part because I mean the mounts in He-Man were just so much more interesting. What did
Right.
She-Ra have? A bunch of horses, right?
Well, now, and what was up with Swiftwind's voice sounding like this? It's like,
Yeah,
what?
that was kind of funny.
Come on, Shira, let's go.
Well, I mean, what does a horse sound like? I
Mr.
admit.
Ed, you think Mr. Ed?
Yeah, I mean now horses sound like Kent Jeong, but
Oh, yep.
that's
Oh,
a My Little Pony
brought
thing.
up my favorite episode of He-Man was when Queen Marlena jumped into our old war machine, just blasted away. The fact she was an astronaut from Earth,
I
I always loved that.
I thought her entrance in the back half of Masters of the Universe on Netflix was an homage to that. The fact that she came
Yeah,
in on the ship. I thought
yeah,
that was that's why I started getting confused though, because like, okay, Marlena's original origin story stuck. There were some theories that Evelyn was also from Earth originally. They didn't stick with that. They just went totally
yeah,
straight up new thing with
yeah.
Evelyn. And I admit, with a lot of these remakes, I spend a lot of time going,
Again,
wait,
Marlena
what? Like,
definitely sticks to it all the time,
yeah.
even in the DC version, which I love. She's introduced, what, and then Constantine, toys her, and what'd she say? I am Queen Marlena, warrior queen of Eternia, and then tosses him across the room.
I thought Marlena was an interesting kind of strong in the Kevin Smith show too. The fact that they allowed her to look like they designed her to look older
Oh yeah,
was pretty cool, but also she had sort of
but did they drop her knowing? Because they never brought it up again.
what do you mean?
Remember, it was implied in the first episode that she
Oh,
knew.
she knew. I thought
But
she
they
knew.
never brought they don't even bring up about that was a problem between them with her and the king, which you think it would have.
Oh, I totally thought that was why they broke up.
I think she implied it. I don't think she flat out
Yeah.
said it though. So that's what threw me off. If it was still, if
I
she,
I I got the strong implication that part of the reason they weren't getting along anymore is because he couldn't handle the fact that she knew and he didn't.
which I can believe that totally.
Yeah. I mean, Marlena was always a surprisingly good character for an
Mhm.
80s kid show.
Yeah, oh, definitely, definitely.
Right.
Always the voice of reason, the voice of like the secret keeper in many regards. Whereas Randor just couldn't get his own head out of his own ass.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Kevin Smith thing, men are butt heads. But yeah, I Marlena.
Oh, here's one other thing. People theorize you would never see. Remember seeing the image of people say like, "You'll never see this," as you show the '80s cartoon of Man at Arms and Tila hugging, saying, "You'll never see this." What did we see in the show? The two hugging.
I really think that whole rumor mill was something that just it was it was a sort of mass hysteria that just got super out of control.
And then they couldn't take it back.
Yeah, it got so ugly there was no exit ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that going on in fandom right now.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
really
Harry
tired of it.
Potter.
Oh God,
I'm
yeah.
not.
Well,
Let's not go there. I just want to throw that out there because I'd rather not talk about that because I'm still a fan of just the Harry Potter work on its own. I don't care about anything that happened after the last movie. I just want to ignore it and just focus on what I enjoyed.
you know what? I enjoyed the stories for what they were.
Yeah.
I always saw the inherent
Oh,
silliness
yep.
of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I always got in trouble
Hmm.
because I treated it like I do He-Man or like Star Wars or anything I like, where I see the silliness, I see the things that don't really make sense, and I make jokes about it. And
Yeah.
even before all this stuff, a lot of Harry Potter fandom was
The
very
potheads, I call
invested.
them.
They couldn't take jokes.
I don't get that. I don't.
They were so invested in it that, and I think that's part of the issue. There's like a cult of personality surrounding J.K. Rowling that is just, again, gotten away from things.
Hmm.
I mean,
I never
some
understood that either. It's like Lucas never got that bad, not to the extent it went.
Lucas hung on too long, but George Lucas knew when, for all the mistakes George Lucas made, he's a difficult person, but for all the mistakes George Lucas made, he recognized eventually that there was a time where for his creation to continue and thrive, he had to separate himself from it.
But
Now,
I think he probably wished he had someone else in his court instead of Kathleen Kennedy to make sure at least what he gave him would have been seen, as opposed to the all let's throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
oh, him and Dave Filoni apparently met quite a bit,
Oh yeah.
and they had
Oh,
discussions about it.
before we go further, I wanted to bring up this. I did not see this coming. I did not see that coming at
You
all.
didn't?
Did you? No,
I
no.
did. Yeah,
Because
oh yeah.
in most versions, they've never been the biological. It's never been.
See, that was another really hard fan canon thing. Is that surprise? Dad is dad. Like that.
I know.
Obviously,
That's what caught me
someone.
off guard though, because I'm so used to them. Like it was some other guy.
I'm kind of admitting how deep I was into He-Man fandom in a while. I wasn't
I don't
actually
mind. I don't
like I
mind.
knew all this stuff, but yeah, that was really deep fan canon. The
Oh
Dad
yeah, and I
was
believe that as
good.
fan canon
Yeah, yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
expect them to actually do it.
who else was there? Right.
Some other character that we never saw.
What I found funny about the Sorceress Tila relationship is they actually suggested that her not telling her was a mistake, which I thought
Yeah.
was kind of bold. It wasn't noble. I mean, it was intended as noble. It was a noble sacrifice, but probably the wrong call.
Oh, and I've seen some versions where they've implied that before, where it's like, yeah, it was. Now I will say this though, I think the Sorcerer had a much better standoff here than again the DC Comics, where she was just beheaded in between issues. It was like, what?
Okay, I admit when there was the sorcerer's death scene, I'm like, yeah, that one's right in the middle of the chest. She's dead. compared to the other one. I mean, the fact that they came back and Adam's holding his side and it's like bleeding. There were a few moments in those first couple episodes, right? Even the last one, there was some. I imagine some people had some salt flowing
Yeah,
watching the back five because they
it kept.
the stuff we caught
Mm-hmm.
setting up early on, the fact that people were going absolutely insane about it, and you
I
can't.
didn't see Praetornia getting destroyed. That was like, uh. I
Well,
thought she was going to destroy one of the towns or something, not Praetornia.
well, again, that was everything's got to be big, right?
Oh
Big,
yeah,
big threat, right? But I don't. I suspect it's not gone. There was a
I
lot
yeah.
of never-ending story
Mm-hmm.
in this Masters of the Universe, which I found very interesting. For people who have not read the book, The Neverending Story, and only seen the movie, read the book.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it actually might have been one of the inspirations, including, Conan the Barbarian and
Yep,
Flash Gordon and all
obviously.
that stuff.
And Shazam and Captain Marvel, Shazam.
Yeah. Oh, I miss when it was called Captain Marvel.
Same here.
I still slip, but say Captain Marvel, right?
So did I. That's why I had an attack on Shazam.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing I would say, the stuff now we never have a confession of love between Adam and Tita, but we get as close as the one we're ever gonna get was her basically saying, "Yeah, I'm not keeping. Like, I need my champion at my side at all times." I'm like, oh, she's using her authority to keep him near her at all times.
I was okay with that because Adam's still a kid.
True. And what
What
is
is
the
he?
age gap? What do you think the age gap is between the two?
I think it's only a couple of years, but if he's 16 and she's 18, that's a big age gap at that
Mm,
age,
true.
right? Maybe they'll do a bit of a jump forward in time for season
Possibly.
2 because yeah, he's a kid, and I liked the fact that there was this little sort of handhold
Yep.
thing.
But again,
I
when she just said like you're supposed to stay at my side at all, pretty much, I'm like, she wants to make sure he doesn't die on her again.
I also thought part of that. I hope I don't spoil anything for anybody with the manga of Attack on Titan. There was a lot of Attack on Titan
Oh, yep.
in
Oh, yeah. We brought it up during the stream, especially the raising the dead and all
a
that.
lot of Attack on Titan. There were a few times I actually went Adam at the screen instead of Eden, but the way they animated Savage He-Man was
Oh, yeah.
very very much
Well, very
Attack on
Hulk, of
Titan.
course, too.
Well, very very Hulk, but very Attack on Titan as well. With the Hulk Kirby drew Hulk more rounded. They gave Savage He-Man more of that. Attack on Titan does an interesting thing where they draw triangles for the Titans,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're the good guys, and they make them seem much scarier that
Right.
way. And they stole that with Savage He-Man. But the ending of Attack on Titan in the manga has a scene kind of similar to what they did with Tila and Adam in one place.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that was a bit of a nod to the fact that they swiped shamelessly from Attack on Titan.
Possibly.
Yeah,
Could have been the
yeah.
animators doing it. I don't think that was anything the writers came up with.
I'm sure it was an animation thing. It's possible they even hired people who worked on Attack on Titan. Who
Right.
knows? I am very happy they cleaned
Yep.
up the animation. If you go back and watch the first episode, you'll see what I mean about
Yep.
being kind of rough.
Yep.
But
So, I will say this. You know what my favorite moment was in the whole back five? The what are we laughing about?
yes. Oh, there were some.
Yeah, but that moment, anything with, I will agree that this is one thing I will agree with the haters. And because even they've said this, all the Adam Skeletor stuff or He-Man Skeletor stuff were the best in the back five.
I don't know. I thought that I did think He-Man's voice acting was quite good. I think
Mm-hmm.
and Prince Adam's voice acting was quite good. I thought Mark Hamill. I was surprised at how little he had to do in the first 6, but I mean, he was just
He made up for it. He made up for.
those middle 3 episodes, like part 2, 1, 2, 3. He was just chewing the scenery,
Mm-hmm.
and that the subtle differences he went because it wasn't he went more nasally at the beginning so he could do that big more in the mouth
I know.
when Skeletor's roided out and has all the
Yep,
power.
the master of the universe.
I thought
Which,
that was pretty great.
and I love the utter nod to the movie. Let this be your final battle. I'm just like, first you did I Skeletor am master of the universe. Now you say let there be our final battle. Why didn't we get a good journey line? Why didn't we? I got that was the one thing I wanted them to do was saying we don't say goodbye. We say good journey.
You know what I just realized as well with people talking in the chat about
Mm-hmm.
how old Tila is? It's a blip MCU thing as well because Adam was dead for a while.
True.
So there was that period of time where
She is even older now.
she
To
kept
be fair,
aging and he didn't.
Now, to be fair, the only time we ever got a definite age was in the 2002 series where she was 16. That's the only time we've gotten that.
That was the age everybody was in 80s cartoons as well.
Right.
You weren't an adult.
But they were. I think they're allowed to keep in the channel right though. Most of them were. Like I think Adam and Tila are both the same age too, so there might be a bit of an age gap now.
Yeah,
but
because if Adam died at 16, and then Tila went and did the whole sulky.
He was different.
So, well, no, she got bulkier.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
The first episode and cut her hair. She did bulk up. And
Oh,
cut
that
her
part,
hair.
yeah.
So there was a time gap of indeterminate months or years. You got the sense it was quite a while because she went off and was a mercenary and then came back.
Yep.
So there's now an age gap between them that didn't exist at the very beginning of the
I would
show.
say about a year. I would think it's about a year or so because, yeah, that was the implication. Oh, Tavia wants to ask about Orco's return.
Oh,
Saw
five
it
years.
coming.
Oh,
Oh,
we said Orco's not dead.
yep, we saw that coming, but I did not
Yeah.
see Orco the White. But I love how Evelyn was shocked. Like, no, not you. It's just like that's the goodness of her coming back out, being like, don't see me like this.
I did think there was a moment there where Evelyn was like, "No, you know me as a good person. You have to go away now. I can't do this." You know.
Exactly. And then Scare Glow, and that you have Orco in 3 different spots, showing that he actually became an Orco finally.
Yeah. The Oracle thing
And
was
then Evelyn saved him from going back. It's like, nope, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I like that. That she, despite everything, she actually ended up saving him at the end. It was
Which I've seen some people complain saying, why does she get the pass when she blew up heaven? And I'm like, because she was broken. Her mind had snapped, both from the power and from what Skeletor has shown her. She was that's the other thing is for just to redeem Evelyn, you needed them to interact with her in the first 5 episodes, seeing that she wasn't such a bad person.
I also find it funny how people are much tougher on female characters making unlikable decisions than they are with male characters. It's always a point of annoyance for
Yeah.
me, and I get why the double standard is what it is. I wish people would check themselves before they succumb to that double standard
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, let's let people be well-rounded people.
Exactly. And like I said, yes. And I bet you, though, here's the other thing is, I bet you Evelyn's going to regret what she did for the rest of her life. If
I
she
think
hasn't already
yeah,
felt bad about what anything she's done beforehand, she's going to feel it now.
they kind of showed that she was already feeling a lot of guilt before this.
Yeah.
And I mean, Evelyn's an example of somebody who is doing the best they can with a very limited amount of choices.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought, I mean, when you actually dig down in the character development of these characters, it's pretty detailed and nuanced for a
That's
show
why I
that.
can believe. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's a show. We have to remember this is a show that exists first and foremost for really beefy people to punch each other in the face and sometimes the stomach, right? Exactly. And so the nuanced character portrayals they managed is pretty impressive considering it is essentially a show that has very beefy people designed to punch each other in the face. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, with a side of pew pew laser and blah blah magic,
Yep.
right?
Oh, sorry. When I say that, yeah, quickly, because I don't know how much time we have left. I just want to bring up Danny Trejo as Ram Man. Perfect casting.
Is that who that
That was
was?
Danny Trejo, yes, for that brief time as Ram Man. I'm like, oh, that was perfect. Just like Kevin Conroy as Merman.
Yeah. It was. I missed some of those voices because after a while, I just assumed if it was a voice I kind of recognized but didn't, they were in Game of Thrones. So I
Yeah,
missed those
yeah,
things.
yeah. But yeah, that was Trejo as Ram Man. I'm like, perfect casting. But
Fantastic.
but yeah, it's just with but yeah, with Evelyn, it just there was just so much I didn't see coming. When it got to that point of her taking the sword, I'm like, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, it was. It to me, it was a little bit rushed.
Oh
I
yeah.
I could have, and I get the way it was split, and I wish it had been 12, not 11.
Mm-hmm.
That back half could have used another, but money and animation and all that stuff. Because I did feel like the ending was rushed, and then at the same time they didn't have enough content for the Evil and Tila fight. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that evolution with her and the fact that it sort of happened when she was at a low point, she
Mm-hmm.
how freaking deep, man, that she determined that the suffering was pointless, so burn it all down.
Exactly, because she's like, there is no plan, and it took Tila having to point out saying you. And what you saw was based off of how your mind has been warped to see it as. Let me show you what it actually was properly without your skewed perspective.
Which Man, if people had just taken that advice during the first
Hmm.
books.
Exactly, exactly. It's like you're looking at it from a skewed perspective. Like evil, they're being like Evelyn was. They're looking at the Zora and the snake with from a skewed perspective. So they think there is no God. Zora is dead.
Zora
We've
is dead.
had no. Yeah, it's like no. Zora is very much alive.
Yeah, it just that was an interesting theme just because part of the reason I liked us doing predictions for the back half was we showed that if you watch the show for what it was pretty obvious where they were going with it, broad
Hmm.
strokes. And the fact that some people got so turned around by some sort of stupid YouTube rumor that
Hmm.
not only did they ruin their enjoyment of it, just because you shouldn't deny yourself happy whenever it's possible, but also they just there's nowhere else to say it. They made fools of themselves.
Yeah, they really, so many of them did. They made fools of themselves, and unfortunately, they've also corrupted so many others into thinking like them. It's like you've said, the wiki fan, off screen before I am, the wiki fans
The wiki
generation.
fan. Yeah, yeah. For people who don't know, I said this on Twitter that there's a phenomenon right now called the wiki fan. I noticed this is an old nerd.
Hmm.
Um, you see, I got the Spectre and a bunch of comic book characters back there. I actually read a lot of Silver Age stories, or even early Bronze Age, like '80s stories, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of fans who are deep into the MCU have read the synopsis of those stories off Wikipedia or wikis, fandom wikis. It's not the same as consuming those, even in the big phone
Exactly.
book style compendiums. It's
Hmm.
not the same. And so there's this, and Masters of the Universe is the same way. There's this disconnect between people who started consuming this stuff in the early 2000s or even mid 90s when the comic speculator market happened and everything became like hollow covers and Rob Liefeld art.
Yeah.
The whimsy of the 70s and 80s, it it died
Yeah.
between He-Man, the original He-Man series, and the 2002 series, and it died between, say Wanda and Vision first having the twins and House of M and the batshit crazy continuity they've got for Billy Kaplan now. Uh, but
And Tommy, whatever his last name. Yeah. Oh, sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
but also the
But the
Wikipedia.
funny thing though, wasn't this supposed to help save comics? Where people would be like, "Oh, I don't want to get into it. There's too much history." Well, go look online. And I remember so many people saying no one's done it. Actually, they have. They've just
Yeah,
simply been focusing on the summaries and not even bothering in. Here's why I would say it. It should have been where they look at the summary, they'd be like, "Oh, let me go actually read it now." So now they no longer have the excuse of saying there's too much lore, but instead they're just reading nothing but the wikis and
well,
nothing else.
they're also not getting the huge spans of time between Billy and Tommy disappearing and coming back again,
Oh
right?
yeah, and all
Yeah.
the almost moments like the crossing and Avengers Forever.
Yeah, and then being the weird fists on that demon. that was
Mephisto, Mephisto.
that was a weird pet. They're the guy's arms. It's like,
Yeah, oh yeah, well yeah,
why?
that was Mephisto, and that was John Byrne basically saying, "Screw you, Englehart. I'm gonna get rid of these stupid kids, and then and then break up Wanda and Vision because I hate that
Yeah,
relationship."
yeah, John Byrne fucked with that a lot. But that was that period of time in comics too, where they were just destroying committed,
Happiness,
stable, yeah,
except for the
partnerships.
Fantastic Four, except for the four.
Yeah, well, Fantastic Four went through rough patches, but it was a time in comics where a lot of creators were getting divorced and they were really bitter
Hmm.
about it, and
Oh,
so
Peter David.
there were some really really ugly ones. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's difficult because I don't think it's possible to. This is why I wish they'd start telling some new stories so everybody can start on the same page with something,
Hmm.
as opposed to you've got this one bucket of fans who remember the Silver Age comics and like this sort of Batman as a nice guy kind of thing, which he is in some comics now.
Oh yeah.
They've really dialed Batman back, which I'm happy about. But yeah, then you've got these other people who came up post spec market who comics have been grimdark and eyeball bloody punches for a very, very long time now. And
Mm-hmm.
you, people go in looking for completely different things. And
Yep.
maybe we'll have to talk Hawkeye when we both have a chance to watch it.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, it's almost like they have to develop different streams of properties for different tastes and not try to make everything cater to everybody. Of course, if you do that, you don't make billion-dollar movies.
Nope.
So, but you do make something that feels more satisfying as a viewer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. It I do you think anybody's learned a lesson from this whole thing other than the stream freezing? There we go.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
That
would
was
say
that was my end. I heard everything you were saying. That
oh,
was
okay.
my end.
Okay, okay, good. You heard it good because you froze totally.
Yep.
But
I
you know,
know. My computer just decided to go.
okay, because you think anyone has learned anything, or the next
No.
time something like this happens, it's gonna be the same screaming again.
It's going to be the same screaming. No one's learned anything. In fact, as far as been concerned, they're going to double and triple down on this more because they think they're justified, that they are in the right, that they were saying, "See, we were right. Kevin lied to us." The only thing Kevin lied about saying was this was the grand finale. That's the only lie I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
again, remember that when he said that, it may have been true.
yeah.
And then
Exactly.
it did really well, and they went, can we change the ending? Which is what happened with what's his name, Donald Westlake and Parker the Hunter.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the original plan was for it to be a one-off, and the publisher went, "We'll give you a 3 to 5 book deal if you don't kill him." And he went,
Legend of
okay.
Korra. Legend of Korra too.
Yeah, yeah.
It was supposed to be
So
one book, and that's why they rushed everything by the end. And then once they're told, "Oh, we'll give you 3 more volumes," that's why volume in book 2 is nothing but them undoing what they did at the end of book 1, and then setting up the next 2 books. That's why 2 is always the worst.
yeah, it doesn't always work. Death Note kind of went the same way, but yeah, I don't know because to me, one of the things, if I could change one thing about the world, and today life is good. I don't know about Thursday streams. I've been doing Tuesday nights, seeing how that goes. The crowdfund is over December 1st, so
Mm-hmm.
let me get through the next 4 days and then see how the game develops.
Right.
But yeah, if anybody hasn't backed the crowdfunding yet,
I have.
you can check. You did, thank you.
Yep.
Um,
So let me just ask: when are you going to be asking us to come up with the NPCs or the pets or anything?
Uh, the greeting card templates will be coming out for people with gifts. The surveys will be due in the new year.
All right.
So people can give them as gifts and people still have plenty of time to fill them in. We don't want to, and then if people are real keeners and get them to it earlier than that, awesome. It'll be an implementation process, right? Like I'm really looking forward to that because I'm really looking forward to going and playing in my own little fantasy world for a while and checking out of this stuff because one of the things that really emotionally impacted me, and this is going back to what I was going to say before, I don't like this thing now where whenever someone is wrong, they're a liar.
I
As
I
opposed
hate that. I hate that.
as opposed to somebody just being mistaken or just things changed. A lie to me is a deliberate falsehood.
Yeah. And
And
it goes back to the
that
marketing thing. Sorry, it goes back to marketing. You
yeah.
can't say everything during interviews, and then I mean, it's like, what do you guys want them to say? Just spill the beans on everything?
Well, also, I mean, the development process being what it is, you can have the most noble intentions in the world, and you get in and something's just not working and you have to pull something or change something, and you're not attempting to mislead anybody. It's just you run out of time, you run out of assets, someone drops off the project.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so much control you have over these things. And I thought all these behind the scenes things and people knowing more about fictional media and how it's made was going to make people more forgiving, but it's had
Nope.
the opposite. Yeah, it's had the opposite results. And as a
Because
company,
I'm now more demanding. I still remember when you had James Mangold doing tweets online, and then eventually he was trying to correct people on like, oh, guys, that's not the same writer. I'm working on the writing of Indiana Jones 5,
Mhm.
and then eventually. I'm just like, what do you guys want him to do? Just stay quiet and let the lies fester? And they're like, yes, he should have
Yes.
shut up and let
Yeah.
everything, all of our rumors stay out. And it's like, you guys don't. So basically, you're saying is you don't like it that he's debunking your little what you were going to cling on to for the next few months.
That has always been something I have found very curious about fandom opinion. That
Mm-hmm.
people who lose their minds over the slightest inconsistency or the slightest broken promise
Mm-hmm.
think that it is reasonable to expect a person who has put their blood, sweat, and tears into a product to just sit there and watch people beat on it.
Exactly. I mean, I
It
wouldn't.
it's hard. You get better at it with time.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh.
I I think about me now versus
Mm-hmm.
me 10 years ago. I really don't care what people call me anymore. I really don't care if people say this or that or this or that. I'm used to it. But
Mm-hmm.
the challenge now is for me to actually get excited about things I'm working on.
Right.
Right. And you don't, people want creators to love things as much as fandom does. Unfortunately, fandom is doing everything I can think of to make creators lose their will to live.
Exactly, and it's one thing when they do it like after the thing's released.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
another when they're doing it from the moment it's announced all the way up until release.
Yeah. And I think
See, today's life is good.
see you today's life is good. I talked about this in previous streams. I've stopped following certain things so closely because I just want to sit down and watch something. And I
Mm-hmm.
find I don't when I build up expectations too much and then something doesn't meet my expectations, I'm disappointed. Whereas if I come into something cold,
Mm-hmm.
I have no expectations. I can just take it. I can take it for what it is.
Exactly.
And the stuff on Disney Plus has been shining examples of that. I've
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed the stuff where I'm just like, "What's this?" Press button. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that. Like
Exactly. It's like okay, it's not an exact example, but if things had gone bad, you know about that Pibby short, right? Come and learn with Pibby.
vaguely.
It's that one that just came out recently. It's on Adult Swim. It's that little preschool girl character, but then everything goes to hell, and she has to become this badass warrior and all that.
Okay.
Um, that could have gone bad. That could have gone, but no, people have been loving it. But if things have gone bad, good God, that could have torn into that creator because saying, "How dare you do this to our beloved characters?" And it's like, you guys don't get the context, do you?
Well, I think it's interesting that that Modoc show came out and just didn't make an impact. It's not very good,
Mm-hmm.
and it was intended as sort of an Adult Swim thing. But that concept could have worked. It was just badly executed. I find it interesting how I okay. Let me ask you guys
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. Um, I can't tell if it's just total luck of the draw which things get outraged on and which aren't, or if Netflix is kind of a bunch of evil geniuses and they know just which buttons to push to drive people insane.
It's just like saying how much Twitter Twitter knows what they're doing. They put and Comics by Perch made this very perfect point, saying that they specifically word their blocks like you've been blocked, so you can be pissed off, so you'll make a new account and circumvent the block, but they'll get the money and all that stuff from you making a new account.
Oh, social media companies, I completely believe, are evil. They don't care about people. But
Mm-hmm.
having worked in the media, everything is so some degree of on fire all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is too difficult for me to believe that anybody is in that tight
Mm-hmm.
control that they know how to make. So, I mean, even Disney. I mean, Disney. We said, and Tristan. We talked
Mm-hmm.
with Tristan about this, that we didn't think Disney could make the Eternals work. We would be very impressed if they could make the Eternals work. Disney couldn't make the Eternals work. It was just
Nope.
sort of it came and went. It was
I was
and
never going to see it anyway, and that was a big thing for me.
well, that there's a gay couple in it felt, and controversy, felt like a desperate move.
That's why I go the woo hands. It's what I call it, woo hands.
Yeah, yeah, woo woo hands. It didn't feel calculated. It felt like
They
I
assumed. It felt like they assumed the reaction as opposed to planning out the reaction.
Yeah, now I know that COVID has been really messing with schedules, and Disney's been showing some signs of flailing. I mean, Star Trek Discovery is showing signs of flailing. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you want to rip that band-aid off, but
No, nope. I do not. I have not even watched it. I have not watched Discovery. I have not watched Picard. I have not watched. What was the other one? Second Deck or something,
oh,
or
I haven't seen Lower Deck or whatever the
Lower
hell.
Deck, Lower Deck,
Okay.
and especially finding out about that one episode, I have no interest in seeing it.
Yeah, like COVID has been messing with, because they knew how to market one way, right? But which, Shang-Chi, they
sorry,
draw.
sorry. Brianka just brought up a good point.
Oh, creators do not get a say in posters, trailers, marketing, nothing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, Queer Force, plain and simple.
Sometimes the only time a creator has control over what gets marketed is if they don't provide the materials. They don't provide the raw materials. So that's what happened with the John Carter movie.
Mm-hmm.
John Carter movie, I highly recommend. The marketing of it was
Mm-hmm.
terrible because the director thought, oh, everybody knows John Carter. You don't have to market this movie. Nobody knew who John Carter was, and more
Yeah.
you couldn't say of Mars, and I don't know. But it was a very enjoyable movie, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest giving it a watch. It is so true to the books,
Oh
surprisingly
yeah.
true to the books.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, we're never gonna get more of it because it bombed.
Yeah, the John Carter movie was really, really good. It wasn't a bad movie. Nobody saw it because they didn't know what it was. But
Mm-hmm.
with, Shang-Chi came out, they did the premiere 2 weeks before the theatrical release, and then they dropped an Eternals trailer, and then all the Spider-Man rumors started happening,
Yep.
and then
Raymond, John Carter was Superman before Superman. The idea of a guy going on to Mars and
yeah,
becoming almost like because of the different gravities, he pretty much becomes a superhero on Mars.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, Bianca,
everybody,
we're talking about the Disney John Carter. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's a good movie. I've got a Woola back there. I love Woola. But yeah, Disney's been flailing, and then the whole Black Widow movie, and then they lost control of the narrative with that lawsuit, and I just can't conceive of this being some sort of evil plan. I will say, I think once a controversy starts, Netflix fans the flames.
Yes, that's what they did with Netflix and with Match of the Universe.
They did it with Masters of the Universe. They did it with Cowboy Bebop. They did it with the
Oh,
whole
Cowboy
Master
Bebop,
thing.
which I'll be honest, I have no interest in seeing that. I
I
have zero interest in it because I've already seen a lot of the spoilers. I've seen the changes done. What the fuck? And then you're having these articles trying to say, "Oh, it's meant to be bad." It's like,
I there are two movies that taught me to stop being an asshole about it.
X-Men 2, we've heard that one.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so three. X-Men 2, the Green Lantern movie, and the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek film.
All right.
with a side of Aquaman. These were X2 was not a movie I thought I was going to hate going in. I was
Right.
profoundly depressed after X2
Yep.
because
I'm aware.
Lady Deathstrike was one of, I thought, the coolest looking characters, and she's just another mute woman in that
Yeah.
film. I was so bummed.
And
But
then Mystique became a mute woman too.
well, Mystique was mute in the first movie,
Except for one line. Except for one line.
except for one line, and it was like, you don't do that twice. But also,
Yeah.
things didn't look cool. But then with the Green Lantern movie, I knew I wasn't gonna like it,
Mm-hmm.
and I got dragged to it, and I knew I wasn't gonna like it, and I was so frustrated that I got dragged to this thing that I was really angry about it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Nobody gave a shit that I didn't want to go. They just thought I was being an asshole after the fact. And then I don't know if it was the Star Trek movie. I think it was before that, because
Which yep.
I had a real issue with what they did in that remake.
Yeah. I considered the requel route.
I actually walked out of that Star Trek movie.
The 09, the 09 movie, the 09 movie.
The one with Zachary Quinto as Spock.
Yeah, really? I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it personally.
I walked out. The first thing I said in the lobby of the theater, she fucked her teacher. You could never get away with that in Starfleet.
That I will agree with that. I will agree with that. Everything was Kirk, I understood. With Spock, no, this is stating the course. Why are we having this?
It was Star Trek has descended into Spock fanboy. Spock does all the things.
Now,
all the
have you seen Star Trek Beyond? Have you seen Star Trek Beyond?
Which one's Beyond?
That was the third one. That was the one where the Enterprise got destroyed and all that.
I stopped. I would not see the one where Benedict Cumberbatch.
That was in the darkness. See Beyond. It was the best written out of all of them.
I just stopped because I don't want to be an asshole about it.
I understand. I would recommend. I would recommend.
That's the moral of the story, right?
I understand.
I broke my rule with Aquaman. I was pretty sure I was not gonna like Aquaman.
Yeah, I understand it, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Beyond felt like it actually did something new. It did something fresh with Star Trek.
I would prefer you be able to sit here and tell me all the reasons you liked it, and I
understand. But you made your decision. You made your decision.
But that's the point. That it is a choice whether to watch this stuff. It is a choice whether to get really angry about this stuff. People have choices based on their, self-control and behaviors and learning from their past mistakes. I think the minute we stop tolerating this from fandom because of all the stereotypes about nerds, we're all going to be better off because, I'm tired of this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I hear you.
It's ridiculous. I hear you. That people are getting piled on online over cartoons and superhero movies. I guarantee you the people who created a lot of these characters would not want people fighting over them.
Agreed. Completely agreed. And yet they...
I looked up and you're gone. What happened?
No. Sorry. I just had to adjust my one of my external drives. I think it's dying. I gotta take care of that.
Yeah, Tevya, I am with you on that, and I know people who love it, and good, great. Not everything is for everyone. Part of it for me is because I work in the media. When you work in the media,
God, yeah, I am not seeing that. I am not seeing that Resident Evil movie. I have no interest in seeing that Resident Evil movie.
Is it a movie or is it a series?
No. It's a movie. If you're thinking series, you're mixing it up with the Infinite Darkness stuff, which was basically that's like the animated stuff, redone.
Which is the one with Lance Reddick?
I think that's the Welcome to Raccoon City.
Oh my God! How many Resident Evil properties are they doing?
Okay. There's two. There was the animated series, which was basically another one of the CGI movies extended into a series.
Okay.
And then you have the Welcome to Raccoon City movie.
Okay.
That's it.
And then there's a series coming out.
Yeah, there's a series coming out. That's the one with Black Wesker.
Right. I don't know how Black Wesker's going to work.
I have no interest in that either. But especially though with this, because I'll say this: I am one of those who do not hate the Paul W. S. Anderson movies.
I didn't hate them. I just didn't like them. I mean, funny thing, those are shot here, and
Ah.
the building that got blown up at the end
Mm-hmm.
of that first Resident Evil, that's our city hall. And so everybody in Toronto saw that movie just to see
Mm-hmm.
Nathan Phillips Square blow up. We were all just like, this is hilarious. They didn't change the building
Mm-hmm.
at all. It's just, oh, cool looking building, boom. So anybody who's remotely familiar with downtown Toronto knows that building. And but
Mm-hmm.
they're making a series about Resident Evil Village.
No, no, no. He's just bringing up about the game and the games. I think.
Oh, I love the game.
Oh yeah. Oh, I did too. Hey, what does it say that a whole bunch of the internet for a brief time came together for Lady Dimitrescu? What does that say? And the funny thing is, when you really think about it, the franchise has been trying to find that right balance of sex appeal and yet still a good character. Because, good lord, did they try too hard with stuff like Revelations, where you had the wetsuit with showing one leg and all that?
See, there's an example of I don't think they knew what they had there
Yeah,
because
because
they wouldn't have made her the first boss if.
yeah.
Does anybody not want us to talk about the ending of Resident Evil Village? Does anybody
Go
want
right
to?
ahead. Go right. I'm pretty sure people don't will mind, but yeah, I loved the ending. That twist.
I liked it. The only issue with it is that, and this is, I think, might have been they thought they covered this with the previously on thing at the top. I really
Mm-hmm.
think that if you weren't familiar with Seven,
Mm-hmm.
the twist is confusing.
That is very true. That is very
Uh,
true.
and they did say that Village was supposed to be a self-contained game.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of
It
is.
really, it kind of is, kind of isn't.
I I don't remember. I streamed that one on Twitch Live, and I figured out something was going on with the stupidity of, you staple his arm back on.
I know. It's that whole, especially the moment it got sliced off, and then he just pours the first aid stuff on it. You're like,
Oh, bit your finger off.
well, now I did like how that never got repaired. His hand never fully got repaired after it got gnawed.
I started going at one point. I started going. The wife's not dead. Something's up with the wife.
Mm-hmm.
That whole
And then you
thing.
find out that the daughter is cut up into pieces, and you're like, what?
Yeah, the daughter getting cut into pieces. I thought was fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, that was great. I'm just saying, though, you didn't. You're like, wait, what?
I think that Resident Evil Village is a game. It's short, so it's a game intended to be played through at least twice, and it does make a lot. It feels much more coherent the second time. I will say that.
Yeah, and I also know this. Have you noticed the first game 7 is kind of condensing the first trilogy of the games? As in 1, 2, and 3 all into one whole. Then Village took 4, 5, and 6 and condensed it into a whole.
That's interesting. I admit I enjoyed Village a lot more than 7. 7 was
Oh yeah, but
really
when you really think about it, though, right? And so, what's the next one going to be? Is it going to be more like, well, the later portion of 6, we're going to have the new generation? Like,
Yeah.
is she going to? Is Ethan's daughter going to team up with Sherry and all that?
Let's face it. The next thing we're getting is some sort of Lady Dimitrescu prequel. If they
Oh,
don't
that's the
do
DLC.
that,
That's the DLC. Yeah, but I'm talking about the next proper game. Because if you think about it, it's been a trilogy of trilogies.
I can never predict where Resident Evil is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I hope they continue with the camp
Mm-hmm.
and
All
don't
right, see you, Raymond.
stop getting so psyched out with Amnesia sold. Be Resident Evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have to call it. I think my voice just went.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
It has been fun.
Mhm.
Thank you for having me back
Yep,
on.
yep,
I
yep.
hope you found this informative.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any questions before I go?
Yeah. Any questions, anyone? Throw them right now. We got a few moments. Anyway, I'll give him a few moments to type.
Yeah. I'm reading this thing about Ethan is still. It is sort of a Swamp Thing, isn't it, Dominic?
Yeah, it is. It is very much a.
Swamp Thing thing.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, there is a bit of a lag in chat.
yeah, there always is. I noticed Bianca and Hamid for going back and forth about that stuff was the actors from Cowboy Bebop. Doesn't really matter now in the long run, but I agree with Bianca. She should not have gotten much of the stuff thrown her way, just like Laura Bailey should never got the stuff she's thrown her way from Last of Us.
Yeah, they don't dress themselves. There's a department for that, right?
Do you believe Shiro will return in something in the future? I personally think so.
Oh yeah, it's too valuable a license.
Favorite Master of the Universe character?
Oh, that's tough.
I almost want to say I would say Skeletor still. Skeletor still my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, can we amend the question to who's your favorite Masters of the Universe character minus Skeletor and He-Man?
Minus Skeletor and He-Man. Ooh, for shits and giggles, I'd say Fisto for shits and giggles.
My favorite toy is Stinkor.
Yep.
My favorite character in the show as a kid was Cringer.
Oh, yep. But I would say my favorite would probably, if I could not go with He-Man and Skeletor, would probably be Evil Lynn, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Evil Lynn on the show is badass. The toy, she's yellow.
Oh, yeah, she's yellow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I always liked just the idea of, Evil Lynn, Evil Lynn, and just, her, like, I think because the live action movie helped me out with that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen much of the CGI He-Man show. So.
Yeah,
Robert?
I watched a little bit of it. I did not watch all of it, but I liked what I saw.
It was Clone Warsy.
Yeah, it was.
Clone Warsy.
Yep. All right. So thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Liana, thank you for joining, and we'll see you all on another one.
Sorry, my throat cacked out. Okay.
No problem. Hey, it happens. It happens.
Bye.
Take care.